If you don't mind to spotlight me, that would be amazing. So we can all be here together, and I will just ask everyone to take one breath together as a community, as a community of learners. So we can do that on the count of 3, 2, 1. I know so much of us have been going through so much suffering, including my family this last, I've lost track of time, 12 or 13 days by now, or 11, 12 days. I just want to start off by saying that I'm dedicating this lecture to a family member named Alma Abraham, who lives in Najalos and who was taken hostage. And she's part of our family. I'm going to show a quick 1-minute video by my cousin, Uri, talking about his mother, just so we all know that, you know, every one of us is affected by what's happening. And so I wanted to share that in honor of her. So this is Uri speaking about his mother, Alma Abraham, our family member.
אמא שלי אישה מאוד מאוד יפה, היא תמיד הייתה כזאת. גם יפה מבחוץ וגם יפה מבפנים. יש בה איזו תמימות של מי שהקים את הארץ הזאת, בטח של הקיבוצניקים שם. מתעורר ב7:30 להזקה ויירוטים. ברור לי לגמרי שאם זה קורה בתל אביב, זה קל וחומר קורה שם. מתקשר אליה ואז היא מספרת לי מה קורה אצלהם. היא אומרת שהם בממ"דים, הם הונחו לו לצאת. היא לבד, יש לי אח שגם כן שם, אבל הוא בחדר שלו. היא אומרת לי היא לא מצליחה לדבר איתו. היא מספרת לי שיש חדירה בשדרות. לוקח לי זמן להבין שהיא אומרת לי, יש גם פה. השעות נוקפות ונוקפות, וזה עוד שעה, עוד שעתיים ושלוש. וככה זה נמשך במשך 10-11 שעות. בשלב מסוים כותב לאח שלי, וכן יש תקשורת איתו. 2 חיילים מלווים אותו לבית של אמא שלי, הוא מוצא בית פרוץ, הפוך. הממ"ד פתוח, במיטה שלה הפוכה, ואמא שלי איננה. אני מקבל את זה מאחותי, היא כותבת לי, אוי, אמא כבר נראה חטופה, ואחרי שעה מגיע אלינו, אני אפילו לא יודע דרך מי ודרך איפה, תמונה, ואני מסתכל על תמונה, ואני רואה את אמא שלי. אמא שלי, בת 84, מושבת על אופנוע, אישה בתמונה שאני לא מכיר לפניה. אני רואה 2 חמושים, הפנים שלה מופנות קצת אחורה, זה ברור לי לגמרי שזה אמא שלי, זה חד משמעית. בבקשה תחזירו את אמא שלי, אלמה אברהם, הביתה.
So if anyone would like to follow up with me and get that video and share it on their social media, I'd be happy to share. And part of what has been getting me through this incredibly hard time was actually last night going out with my wife, Carla, here in Majorca and putting up signs of the hostages as many places as we could in the center of downtown Palma, which is just beyond that cathedral over there. And also doing the tours. So my name is Dani Rotstein. I'm from New Jersey originally. I live in Majorca for the last 9 years. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, how I got here. But the fact that we're still going out and telling the Jewish history of Majorca on the streets, wearing this shirt proudly, has been doing wonders for my mental health and psyche. And I think it's so important that all of us cannot be silent, and we have to be talking and communicating and sharing because that's what we can do. And so I wanted to put that, request out to all of you. All right, now we're going to change gears, as hard as that may be. And I really, really would love everyone to take a break from the news cycle and being glued to our social media, do the opposite of what I just asked, and come with me on this journey to visit this beautiful island next to me, right behind me, called Majorca. So where's Majorca? That's how we have to start, because not everyone knows where Majorca is. So if we go to the map, you will see that the Balearic Islands are in between Spain and Portugal and Italy, okay? So we're gonna zoom in and we're going to the biggest island, that's Majorca, okay, right here. We have about 1 million inhabitants, And we have about 1,000 Jews that are living here on the island, more or less. We don't know exactly because only 30 or 40 of them, of us rather, pay dues to the one synagogue that we have on the island that was started here in the 1970s by British expats who came to retire here. But what they didn't know, and what I didn't know when I moved here, is that there is an incredibly rich, deep, profound Jewish history here that I'm really, really excited to share. P.S. I see the chat already buzzing off. Please send questions to Mara during this presentation as they come up, so we can go back on them during the Q&A. So here's Palma, the city center of Palma. It is a port city, super important in medieval times. And I'm zooming in to our crown jewel. This is our cathedral. The Cathedral by the Sea is actually what it's known as. And why am I showing you a cathedral on a Jewish tour? Because the Jewish quarter is right next to the cathedral, okay? This work of art took 300 years to build, from the year 1300 to 1600. And can everyone just zoom in and see that rose window, that monstrous, large, big rose window that is right there? And maybe you can see a little shape there. And if you're recognizing the Magen David, the Star of David, you're absolutely correct. Why is there a Star of David in a cathedral in Spain? There's many theories about this, but the real truth of the matter, in my opinion, is that the Star of David was shared by many different religions back then. It was actually the menorah, okay, the candelabra of 7 arms, that is the symbol of Judaism now and also back then. The Star of David, I think, became really popular when Theodor Herzl was coming up with the idea of Zionism. Also, the Nazis made the Jews wear stars of David. So that's how today I think the Star of David has kind of it's more recognized around the world. So that's where we are. Now I want you to see the beauty of Majorca. So I'm going to ask you, please, we've been dying for this for a very long time now. Let's go on vacation. Let's everyone take a step back, look out your virtual window to your left, look out your virtual window to your right, and look at the beautiful, beautiful imagery of Majorca Island. And we hope that we can host you all one day and you can be here for yourself. They did just open up direct flights from New York, and I hear they're opening up to Miami soon, and DC and Atlanta as well, if you come from those places. So here's a little welcome video to see beautiful Majorca. You can hear the music, right, Mara? Beautiful bike riding, beautiful ravines and mountains. That's our Belvedere Castle, one of the only circular castles in all of Europe. There's our cathedral. Our world famous port, home to the top 3 super yacht in the world. Beautiful agriculture. This is Valdemosa, a beautiful mountain town. Looks like a minaret because it was a very important Moorish history here as well. 900, 1200. Wineries galore, about 100 wineries all over the island. Ring that is no longer being used. They have prohibited bullfighting here in Majorca and in Catalonia. Beautiful, beautiful Majorca Island in the Mediterranean Sea, home to these incredible coves and calas. The mountains that I showed you, the training team from Germany for Tour de France comes to train here. And also a little well-known tennis celebrity, Rafa Nadal, is from Majorca. Not everyone knows that. But it's also home to an incredibly unknown Jewish history that I myself knew nothing about when I came here, okay? So I moved from New York City, where I was living, in 2014. I'm a film producer, a TV commercial producer by trade. I came here, I got a job with a company locally, Palma Pictures, and I really thought I was going to be the only Jewish person on the island. There's about maybe 400,000 Jews living in France, about 40,000, if that, living in Spain. So the Inquisition did a very thorough job here, sadly. And I know from when I was living in Madrid, I went to college here for 1 year, not a really large Jewish community. So I just assumed I was the only Jew, from the island. It was okay. I was coming from Manhattan, which is a totally Jewish island. So I could take a year off. And I got here and I was speaking with a friend at work and they said, oh, you're Jewish. Your dad is from Israel. We were talking about it. You should go to the synagogue. I was like, synagogue? You mean the one I have to dig underground to get to and explore the ruins? And they said, no, you can go on Friday night. It's in a trendy part of town, a neighborhood called Santa Catalina. So I looked online, there was nothing there. And calling around, I finally found the address. It's sandwiched between Molly Malone's Irish Bar and the Chinese Healthy Massage Parlor. Don't ask me why. It was actually started in 1987, this synagogue, by British expats, as I said earlier, in the 1970s. They came to retire. First thing they did, buy a plot of land. That is their cemetery that is still in use today. One of 4 Jewish cemeteries in all of Spain. We have one of those 4. I walked into the synagogue, and I'll never forget this moment because there was no security. There was like no one really at the door. I just kind of walked in. Everyone looked at me like, who's the new guy? And it's a Sephardic synagogue. It's Orthodox, and there's a divider, mechitza, between men and women. Now, there was no rabbi. There's no chazan, no cantor. And he very clearly said, the volunteer that was leading the services that night, because we don't have the minyan, because we don't have 10 Jewish men in the Orthodox stream of Judaism, we have to skip the Baruch Hu, we have to skip some of the prayers, the Kaddish. And I looked around the men's section and I counted 14 men. And I was pretty sure that the number is 10 globally. It doesn't change by country. And I asked the neighbor next to me, I said, why are we skipping? We have a minyan, we have 14 men here. And he said to me something I'll never forget, which was, well, that's obvious. Some of these men are not Jewish. They're Chueta. And I'd never heard the term Chueta before. Now, if you, I see some friends who are here, Jacob from Canada and a number of other people. So some people here have heard of the word Chueta. A lot of other people have not. And so here is the word Chueta. It is a local language. It's a Mallorquin language, and it is a version of Catalan. I'm just going to share my screen so you could all see it. There we are. That's the island of Majorca. That's a yarmulke from our wedding that we had here. My wife and I, and this is the word, els Chueta, the Chuetas. And it is a Catalan word, rather Mallorquin, the local dialect here. And it means Catholic descendants of the Jewish conversos from Majorca Island. They're only from Majorca Island. They're not from Ibiza. They're not from Barcelona. There are 15 families that have been married within the same families for centuries and only started losing the stigma and marrying between, people who are not Chueta as recently as the 1930s, 1940s. I know of a friend who is 60 years old. No, he's older, almost 80 years old, who got married in 1960. He is Chueta. He married someone who's not Chueta. And the people from the non-Chueta's family came dressed in black as a way to show that they were unhappy that she was marrying someone with a Chueta last name. So where does this word Chueta come from? A number of theories here. One could be French. Chien means dog. Chouette means female owl. No one wants to be called those animals. They're not nice. I don't really go for the French because we don't speak French here. I believe it comes from Catalan. The word chouya means bacon or pork because everyone knew who these families were. Their names were hanging in a convent from the 1400s to the 1800s. That's how long the Inquisition was here on this island, that everyone knew who these people were. They lived in a certain area of town that used to be the Jewish quarter, and they would cook bacon and pork outside their homes to show everyone that they are no longer Jewish, they are no longer keeping kosher. Maybe, just maybe, some of these families did this outside their home to not bring any pig inside their home. And the other thing that is interesting, the word for Jew in Catalan is jueu. A not nice way to call someone Jewish is jueto, you little Jew. And so you can see a sign right there around the Jewish quarter, Carrer dels Jueus, with the little menorah there on the slide. So Street of the Jews is what that says. So listen to it, jueto and chueto. Sounds very similar. Perhaps Chueta, which is a derogatory term, very similar to the word marrano, if you heard of that. That's Spanish. Marrano also comes from pig. It's like calling someone a dirty swine, a filthy animal. We should not be saying marrano. We should be using the term converso, or in Hebrew, bnei anusim, children of the forced. Who are the forced? Jews who were forced to convert. Okay, and they are bnei anusim, children of the forced. So all of these terms, it's very important that we understand the timeline of Majorca's Jewish history. We know that there are Jews living here since the 400s, okay, a very, very long time. We're going to learn about that in a video I'll show you next. And then the mass conversion took place on 1435. Hundreds of Jews went into a church and were converted to Christianity, Catholicism. And then you have this incredible, fascinating period, 250 years or so, of crypto Jews, not cryptocurrency, crypto Jews, meaning secret Jews. They're also called conversos, and they're also called new Christians because they just became Christian. And new Christians would never marry with old Christians. So that's why it's beyond fascinating that in 2011, Rav Nisim Karelitz of Bnei Barak, a big dayan in Israel, says that if you are Chueta from your mother's line, it means that you are still Jewish. You don't have to convert. You can do what's called the return, which means that you get a certificate. You have to go through the process of learning about Judaism, go in front of a Beit Din, a tribunal of rabbis, a mikvah. But when you get your certificate, it says that you are not converting to the Jewish people. You are returning to the faith of your ancestors, which is very important to them. After 1691, which is a big, terrible event we're going to learn about later, that's when this derogatory term, the Chuetas, are called. And here today, mainly amongst very older generations, you might still hear some derogatory terms like, oh, don't be so Chueta, like if you didn't want to pay the bill or give a tip or something. So the same anti-Semitic tropes of the Jews were applied on these Catholic people because they're some of the most practicing Catholics you'll meet because they're always trying to prove how Catholic they are to the rest of society. But the rest of society never let them assimilate, okay? And they're also called Segel Street. That's an area where they all lived. And they're also just called from the street, like they don't even get a neighborhood. All right, so you've been listening to me talk quite a bit. I'm a producer by trade, so I want to share some videos that I made with you regarding a virtual tour and later a documentary that we made that we're actually so excited to be sharing amongst Jewish communities all over the world. So I'd be happy for you to get in touch and we can share the full film with you later. But here is a Jewish interpretation center just opened in 2015. This is all very recent, what I'm telling you. And it feels so exciting to be sharing all of this with you. So here's a little bit of the medieval history of Jewish Majorca. We'll be back in a second. Oh, here we are. Great. "70 years after the birth of Christ, Second Temple is destroyed, and that's when the second diaspora, the people, Jews leaving Israel, was created. So we believe that there are Jews living here since after that time. A lot of Jews came as slaves with Romans, and the Romans, were one of the first people to settle in Majorca. And we know that there's been Jews here because we found this piece. It's a lamp with a menorah on it, and they say that it dates back to the 4th century or 5th century. And we also know because there's a famous letter, it's amazing that documents have been preserved, by the Bishop Severus, who talks about wanting to convert the Jewish community, not of Majorca, but of Menorca. And this was in the year 418, Common Era, okay? So we know that there's a Jewish community living in Menorca, so we can assume maybe that if there's Jews living in Menorca, perhaps there's Jews living in Majorca as well. So we start seeing Jewish presence in the 400s, okay? There's not a lot of information, but basically we believe that there's been Jews in Majorca, in the Balearic Islands, through lots of different people conquering the islands, right? The Almohads, the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Moros, okay? The Moros from North Africa were in control of Majorca. They called it Medina Majorca from around the 900s to 1229. 1229 is an important year because it's when Jaime I comes, and he comes from Aragon and he conquers Majorca, okay? And they believe that He brought many Jews with him from the mainland. They were helping to finance a lot of his conquest. And we know that there were Jews living quite happily under Muslim rule, because it's been documented that when he came, there were Jews already waiting for him. So the Jews that were already living here and the Jews that came from mainland came, and they began with these Jewish quarters, which is amazing to see that right where the cathedral is, that actually used to be a mosque, okay, so they built the cathedral on top of the mosque, and right in front of the cathedral is the palace of Al-Mudayina. They believe that's the first Jewish quarter of Majorca. That's where the Jews lived when they were under Muslim rule. When Jaime I came, he moved the Jewish quarter to what's known as the Cai Menor, the small Jewish quarter, which is around Segel, Jaime II, and San Bartholomew Street, okay? Right where the Barcelona football store is, right in the middle, and the Banco de España, very close to Plaza Mayor. This is incredible that they built this Jewish quarter, and Jews from all over the Mediterranean started to come to Majorca, from Alexandria, from Marseille, from all over. Why? Why would Jews come to Majorca in this time? Yeah, trade, exactly. Yes. If you look at Majorca on the map, it's perfectly located for all of trade routes, all of movements, because at that time, that is the world for those people. They hadn't discovered, Christopher Columbus is in 1492, they haven't discovered other places around the globe. So Majorca is in a great position, and this is Palma. It's a beautiful city, well protected, big harbor, and so this Jewish quarter is not big enough for all the Jews that are coming, so the king at the time decides to give them Cai Mayor, okay, the larger Jewish quarter. So at the same time, you have a small Jewish quarter and a larger Jewish quarter. We're going to be walking through the larger Jewish quarter today. What we're seeing today are places where a synagogue used to be, places where the Jewish quarter had important landmarks to it. Here is just a nice map showing where all the different synagogues they believe used to be. Okay, we're going to go visit a couple. This is a beautiful map showing the 3 cemeteries they believe were outside of the city wall. In Jewish religion, at that time, the cemeteries were going to always be outside the city wall, on a slope, and near water. Very similar to Montjuic. Have you guys heard of Montjuic in Barcelona? It means Mount of the Jews. They know that there was a cemetery there in medieval times. Okay, so here's our Jewish quarter and the cemeteries outside of it. There are so many incredible Jewish characters, people that are living, that are from Majorca, like rabbis, philosophers, map makers, mathematicians, doctors, scientists. I mean, they contributed so much. What's that?
Columbus as well.
Maybe Christopher Columbus, exactly, might have Jewish roots. So here is a map by the father and son team, probably the most famous Jews from Majorca. Their names? Right. Hafuda ben Cresques, Yehuda, son of Cresques, and his father is Cresques ben Abraham. Okay, a lot of people think that, oh, the Cresques family. No, not true. It's Cresques ben Abraham is the dad, and Yehuda ben Cresques is the son. And they made this map in 1375, and as you can see, Spain, Balearic Islands, Corsica, Sardinia, Italy, Greece, and all the way over here. What is it? Israel, right, is the country. And on all of his maps, he put a red slab of paint, a red something marking this area with a red dash. What do you guys think that might represent for him on a map? Yes, the Red Sea. That's right. So for him, Yehuda Cresques is living in Majorca, but he's always making a point to mention and to call out Israel, because for him, he's Jewish, and he always wants to be going back to Zion, going back to the land of his forefathers. And that's important when we start to talk about in the next room about forced conversions and how important religion is in that time frame. The one thing I will add is that there is a very famous rabbi named Rabbi Simon ben Sema Duran. He has to leave after the attack of 1391. He goes to Algeria. He becomes a really big rabbi. I believe he's called the Tashbats, if I'm not mistaken, in Talmudic learning. And a lot of people know of this rabbi, but don't know that he's from Majorca, because he went to Algeria, where he's become like the big rabbi of Algeria. But he's originally from Majorca, which is very interesting. Let's all move to the other room, where we're going to learn more about what happens next. Thank you. I think I was unmuted because everyone else is unmuted as well. So that is what people just don't realize, that there is a huge rabbi from Algeria. Everyone thinks he's from Algeria, but he's actually born from Majorca, the Tashbats. And then the cartographers, they have a Jewish school of map making from here. I mean, Majorca was so important. We think that at its height, there might have been up to 3,000 Jews living in a city that maybe had 30 or 40,000 people in it. I mean, it really was an incredible impact. Going back to the slides, usually when things go well, no problem, right? It's when things go bad that we have an issue. So that is what happened on August 2nd, 1391. There was a terrible massacre. There were pogroms that happened all over Spain, and Majorca included. And in Barcelona, for example, that was the end of that Jewish quarter. Many different Jewish quarters around Majorca were extinguished, but Palma kept going because the king felt that the Jews were his property, and the Jews were very important to society at that time. So he allowed 150 Portuguese Jews after 1391 to come and settle in Majorca to keep the Jewish community alive. And what people don't realize is that in 1393, the Jews were forced to wear a red and yellow wheel to identify them, who was Jewish and who was not, when they were leaving the Jewish quarter and walking around. And I think that's fascinating when you consider what Nazis did in Germany with the yellow star. History repeats itself. We cannot say that enough. And that is why we need to educate everyone as much as possible about history. So hopefully we can prevent it from happening again. And this is a little bit of why I've left my producing gig and trying to tell the Jewish history of Majorca to as many people that will listen. 1435, we have the forced mass conversion. Hundreds of Jews go into the Church of Santa Eulalia because they didn't have options like in other parts of Spain. You could convert, you could die, or you could leave. Majorca is an island. You can't just get on a boat and leave. It costs a lot of money to do so, and it's not easy. Also, who wants to get on a boat at that time? You never know if you're going to live or not. So there we were given one option: convert or die. Those were your options. So everyone converted in 1435, which is fascinating because in 1492, when the Catholic monarchs expelled the Jews from all of Spain, there are no Jews that left Majorca because they all had been converted 60 years before that, which is why I believe that the Jewish flame, the Jewish spirit, is still so potent. It's still so valid today. You had people who went underground. They kept practicing Judaism secretly, all the way that there are now some people who are returning to Judaism that come to our synagogue that have made the full return. There's about 10 or 15 of these people who are Chueta, who have returned to the faith of their ancestors, out of about 20,000 people with Chueta last name. So it's not a large mass movement here. That's what's happening in Latin America, which I'm going to talk about at the end of our presentation. So we kind of jump to this idea of 250 years, people secretly practicing Judaism, until there was the Inquisition. The Inquisition came from 1488 and was here until 1834. And it went after conversos. It tried to find people who were lighting candles Friday night, or who were trying to not eat pork, or who were cleaning, before Friday. And so this is really, really important to understand. I'm going to show you a scene from our documentary film called Chueta Island, where we talk about the famous failed boat escape of 1688. This is a scene from our film, Chueta Island, and we hope that you all enjoy it. About that. Clicked the wrong button. Where are you? Here we are. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay. This is an idea that I've had for a while, that imagine that you're with a group of people, like 4 or 5 people, and you get a map and you get a bag with different hints and clues that are in it, okay? It's kind of like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
And hold on one sec. Get my bearings. Yeah, look at the name of that street.
Shalom, like shalom.
Yeah,
So little clues like that. You see like a 2-minute video that like gets you into the mood and stuff like that. And all of this is because you're trying to escape the Jewish quarter of Palma.
Okay, oh wow.
Calle de la Sinagoga Vella.
Okay,
The Jews of like the 1300s when they built, 1200s when they built this Jewish quarter. So this is the site of an old synagogue, somewhere here. We don't know where exactly.
Oh wow.
There it is, in the walls. Just, es como hay una gincana esperando para salir de las paredes. The old walls and tiny alleyways of Palma's Jewish quarter are a perfect setting for a scavenger hunt or escape room, recalling the times when Jews had to hide from the Inquisition. On the evening of March 7th in the year 1688, one of the most dramatic episodes took place. A group of about 40 crypto Jews secretly boarded an English ship in order to flee the Inquisition. Unfortunately, a storm was brewing at sea and caused the ship to never leave port, and they had to return to the walled city where they were reported and captured. They were tortured and kept in the secret prisons for 3 years, and in 1691, 4 autos de fe, or public executions by way of burning at the stake, were held in which 88 people were convicted. 37 of them condemned and killed. 3 of them, Caterina Taronji and Rafaelette Benito Taronji, and Rabbi Raphael Weiss, were burned alive in front of 30,000 people for not giving up their Judaism publicly. It is what is remembered in the Mallorquin language as the Cremadissa. It is after this terrible event that the descendants of the Jewish conversos will begin to be called Chuetas. It's a real story. It happened here, and it's that night, and you're trying to get together, and you have to do a couple tasks and certain things before you can escape, get out of the city, and get on a boat and go to freedom because the Inquisition is here and they're coming after you. Cool. You're trying to get out for your life, and you come out of it a little sad, a little depressed, because no matter which way, the story doesn't end well for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dani, I got caught up in the film.
No worries. So that is a scene from our film that talks about the incredibly awful and disgusting burnings of the stake that happened for 400 years. That's just one. And because of that event, there was a terrible book being written called The Triumphant Faith, which listed the names. So these are the names that have been hanging pretty much since the 1500s till 1834. And that's important to note. I actually want to make a big point about that, you know, in 1755, they renovated these names. So there might be 300 names actually with people with Jewish roots. But when they renovated them in 1755, they say they didn't have enough money to renovate all of them. So they only renovated the ones from 1645, those victims. But there's another theory that says those who didn't want their names on the black list bribed the church to take their names off the list. So that's why there's only these 15 names. And these are the 15 names. Sorry, I thought I knew where it was. Here we go. So these are the 15 names of Majorca, okay? It's as if they say Spielberg, Rotstein, whatever, like these very Jewish sounding names in the United States. These are the Jewish sounding names of Majorca. If you have one of these last names, it is without a shadow of a doubt that you are Chueta, that as long as you're from Majorca, that's an important note to make. Miró, a lot of people see the name Miró. The famous artist, Joan Miró, is not Chueta because he has always been from Barcelona. The Miró family from Catalonia does not have Jewish roots, where the Miró family from Majorca definitely has, okay? Same thing with Hernán Cortés, the famous navigator. You see that name there as well. You have to have been from Majorca. And I cannot tell you how inspiring it has been to receive some emails and messages online from these last names, people who live in Puerto Rico, in Cuba, in Argentina, in New York. and know that they came from Majorca, and now they're discovering that they have Jewish roots. And now with DNA testing, they can see that they definitely have Jewish roots. It's so incredible how many people might have Jewish roots and don't know it, and how that affects people when they want to learn about their family heritage. Now I want to jump and show you a quick video of Miquel Aguiló, okay, one of the Chueta names we just saw. This shop has been in his family since the year 1685. And hearing him talk about his family history. Now, he is not someone who has returned to Judaism. He knows he's Chueta, but he's still Catholic. I don't think he's rather religious. I don't think he goes to church, and he definitely wouldn't go to synagogue. So this is Miquel Aguiló talking about his family's history. And Mara, I'll just remind you to unmute me. Well, I don't know if I need to be muted. Let's see if I can do this without muting myself. Here we go.
Bueno, jo som en Miquel Aguiló, som 11a generació d'una família de botiguers, més concretament mercers, perquè sempre hem venut el que veus aquí, fils, cintetes, ventalls, botons i totes les punyetetes de merceria.
He's speaking Mallorquín.
I estava un negoci que fa això, 330 anys, que és de la mateixa família, que els meus avantpassats varen comprar la Inquisició, perquè antes era d'un jueu convers que va haver de fugir de Mallorca perquè no el cremassin. I som d'una família xueta que duim aquest negoci d'això fa 300 anys. Hem conservat una petita part dels documents que teníem, perquè la majoria se van fer malbé, i hem pogut rescatar una història que mon pare no coneixia. Ara mateix, si anaus en el carrer d'Argenteria, queda qualque negoci antic, representant per Chuetas, i si voleu entrar i parlar amb aquesta gent major sobre el tema Chueta, vos trobaran a de fora. No em volen parlar. Pensa que mon pare no tant, però la meva predina, per exemple, sí que va patir les seves cans, vull dir, quan arribava Pasco, que passassin per aquí, t'insultassin, o que te tirassin pedres, era una cosa que passava, i quan s'acostava la Pasco catòlica, que t'insultassin, assassins de Jesús. I hem pogut construir aquest arbre, que són 500 persones, tots, menys el meu sogre i ma mare, tots són xuetes, perquè no se mesclaven. I hem pogut, en verd, hem pogut construir des de on venia la botiga que va comprar el nostre avantpassat, l'any 1685. Xuetes, antes que xuetes, com la resta de mallorquins, se senten molt mallorquins. És una cosa que la meva filla sempre em diu: «Papà, la història és horrible, no m'agrada gens estudiar història». Clar, és el mètode que a l'escola la manera d'ensenyar història és aprendre fetges i aprendre noms. Però si aprenguéssim història contada de les coses que han passat i per què han passat, seria molt més interessant, per exemple.
Amen to that. That's Miquel talking about how to make history more interesting, more exciting. And that's the world I want to be in. I want to think about how are we teaching history and doing education 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. I'm thinking of virtual glasses where you could be on a tour with me and turn around and I could tell you, look up there, and documentaries and just making it as exciting. In the film, you saw a scavenger hunt. You know, we have to find interesting ways to educate the younger generations. And what blew me away is when I saw that family tree in person, I noticed that his brother had 12 children and there was Hebrew on the family tree. So I'm here to tell you that his brother, Miquel Aguiló, is actually Rav Nissan, who is a rabbi in Israel, and he is Chueta. He was born in Majorca. And in 1977, he made Aliyah, went to Israel. He got teased, picked on, made fun of for being Chueta. And he's like, if I'm going to be treated like a Jew, I might as well see what this whole being Jewish thing is about. So he connected with the local synagogue here, the British and French and German expats living here. And then he went to Israel. He made Aliyah. He actually converted because his mother is not Chueta, his father is. And he has 12 children from Israel. 3 of them are actually on the front lines right now. And he lives in Shiloh. And the most just beyond incredible fact that I can tell you is that 2 years ago, we were able to get some funding from the Federation of Jewish Communities of Spain sitting in Madrid. And we hired him to be our official rabbi of the community. And so now he travels 10 days every month to be with us for Shabbat, to be with us for the Jewish holidays. He just had to cancel his plans, of course, that he was supposed to come tomorrow with the situation with the war that is going on in Israel right now. And he's the first rabbi originally from Majorca in over 600 years. And it is just incredible to think about the Jewish spirit that is somehow, even the Inquisition tried to extinguish us and eradicate us from this island, that we are now back. And now it's my incredible pleasure to show you a couple videos of how we are trying to revive the Jewish community here on the island. First thing, I'll share you a video of Rav Nisan. There's actually another Chueta rabbi named Joseph Fuster, who also lives in Israel. So there are 2 currently. And it's just incredible to think about all these things that are happening. I told you about 2011, when some rabbis came from Israel and learned about the Chuetas and made a dictatum saying that, you know, they can do what's called a return, not a conversion. And in 2018, we did a conference called Limud. You might have heard of it. It's a worldwide global organization. We thought 15 people were going to come, and suddenly over 90 people came. And it was such a beautiful feeling of people coming together to learn, to sing, to dance, celebrate Israel, celebrate Jewish culture. And in 2018, 3 huge things happened. One, in the top left, you can see they renamed the street Katerina Taronji, the woman who was burned alive in 1691. The second picture, you can see a chuppah with Tony Pina marrying Chiska Weiss. She is the descendant of Raphael Weiss, who was also burned alive. She has a family tree showing that. That's their second marriage. They got married under a chuppah in Israel, the first ever Chueta marriage, wedding to another Chueta in Israel ever, 2018. They put a plaque where the burning of the stake took place in Plaza Gomila that used to be called the bonfire of the Jews. That was what it was called. Now it's called Plaza Gomila. They put this beautiful plaque with the menorah and with the Shema, and saying that 37 Chuetas were executed on this spot for believing in their faith. We had a new board be elected. Myself, along with Ari Molina, who's from Girona, Tony Pina, and Mikel Segura. The 4 of us were elected onto the very small synagogue. There's only about 30 or 40 of us. That's Rabbi Joseph Wallace. Some people might be familiar with him. And that's Eliezer, who is one of our chazan, who sings beautifully. And you know, we came on this board. It's the first time that Chuetas were not only members of the Jewish community, but leaders as well. And that's also the year that I started doing these tours. That's a statue of Jehuda Kreskes, the famous Jewish cartographer. And the next year, we had a larger limud. We had over 150 people come out to learn about Jewish culture. And it was really, really beautiful. We had a Catholic choir that came, Luis Fortesa, who is Chueta, who's Catholic, but loves Israel and appreciates his Jewish roots, sang the Hatikvah for us, sang Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. It was a really incredible event. And so is there a Jewish revival taking place? We certainly hope and think so. During the pandemic, we did something called Shazum, where we met on Fridays to do Shabbat. We have the western wing of a church that used to be where a synagogue was, where people are using as like a kotel and putting papers in it. We just started that ritual as well. We are teaching children about their own family history, showing the Chueta's name. This could not have happened 20 years ago. And we are going into schools and teaching as much as possible. And we're doing a documentary, we're doing these tours. So we're really trying to get this story out because we really think it's so important. And just this past summer, my wife and I opened up a shop. It was just for the summer season. And here's a video of the rabbi, Rav Nisan, one of 2 Chueta rabbis in the world, putting up a mezuzah on our little shop that we now are making mezuzot locally here, and Kiddush cups and Shabbat candle holders. And there's no Chabad, shockingly. I know that's going to be a question coming up in the Q&A, and we'll talk about that at that time. But just a couple more videos.
That was amazing timing that someone just sent that question.
I've done it a couple times, these lectures. I know the questions that are going to come up. So here's Rav Nissan. Remember, originally born, from a Catholic family, Chueta family from Majorca. And here he is putting up our mezuzah.
Y en segundo lugar, porque parece más correcto.
Okay.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על קביעת מזוזות.
Amen. Lo que pasa es, ¿podemos abrir la puerta?
So we'll see if we bring the shop back. It was, a good experiment to try and get the word out there. We had a sign that said Jewish Majorca. You had to find us online before we had that. And so, we are doing our best, and to kind of bring it back full circle the way we started. We think it's so important to continue telling this story. I know it's a microcosm, a little tiny island in the middle Mediterranean, but watch this video. And what are the chances? About 1988, Jacqueline Tobias, a French Jewish woman, which I'll talk about later in a second, she and other Chuetas and the Jewish community and Karen Kayemet L'Israel, JNF, planted 18 orange trees in a plaza right next to Plaza Mayor, which is where the Inquisition headquarters used to be. That does not exist anymore, where the torture was, the secret prisons for 400 years. And the Jewish community and JNF planted these trees in a way of healing the divide that had been taking place for so long. And so now I included on our tours, and this is just from 2 days ago. This video is from 2 days ago. Very excited to share it with all of you. Here we go.
They just put this in because we asked them to. And it says in Catalan, the local language, 18 trees, symbol of life, donated to the city of Palma by its Jewish community and the committee of Karen Kayemet L'Israel, thanks to the impulse, the power, the initiative of Jacqueline Tobias. Look at the date, October 7th, 1988, 26th of Tishrei, 5749. Maybe in 10 years from now, in 30 years from now, in 50 years from now, they will be talking about when Hamas, this old organization that doesn't exist anymore, attacked Nachalos, attacked Beirim, attacked Alumim, attacked the music festival Nova, attacked Israel. And this is the date 35 years before. 35 years before this terrible attack, this disgusting attack, they planted the orange trees here in Majorca. And in the future, they will talk about this date for two reasons, okay? One of the orange trees and the other of the attack that ended Hamas. This is the dream, this is the hope. And the last thing I want to tell you, we'll come outside.
The last thing I want to tell you is this story that to me sums it all up. We couldn't include it in our documentary because it didn't work with the edit and the time frame, but I want to tell the story of Jacqueline Tobias. She moved here in 1956, Jewish, French, meets a young guy named Juan, who she ends up marrying. Juan is not Chueta, but he's from Majorca. Now, when Juan brings his new girlfriend home to mom, you would think it's going to be a pretty big problem, right? All this disgusting stigma and discrimination and persecution, treating Chueta people like second-class citizens because of their Jewish roots. Do you know what the mother said? The mother said, "Oh, she's Jewish? At least she's not Chueta." Which I want you to all take a second and think about what that means. She was more concerned about her son marrying another Mallorquin woman who was Catholic, super Catholic, because the Chuetas usually are, has been in Majorca for centuries, speaks the local language, someone from their island, just because of a last name. And she would prefer to marry someone who's French, someone from another place who doesn't speak the language, who's Jewish. to me, it shows everything that's wrong about hate and intolerance in the world, that it has no sense. It doesn't make sense why people hate one another. It's all from education. No one is born homophobic or racist or anti-Semitic or xenophobic. No one, it's just learned. And so this learning, this awful education, we have to fight against that. And if we don't, then we're headed into trouble. I want to finish with a new project that is not, I have not shared this with anyone else. Mara, this is like the first time I'm sharing this publicly. My wife and I and our 3-year-old son at the time last year, we went traveling last year to all over Latin America. We went to Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, and we went to learn about what's something called emerging communities. These are Christian communities, some of them with Jewish roots, some of them with not, who want to come into Judaism. They want to be a part of the Jewish people for whatever their reason is. And some Jewish communities are not accepting them. And I think we have an opportunity here to open the door, and we need friends right now. What's been happening the last 2 weeks is so evident how many friends we need in this world. So I'm going to leave you with this little trailer, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So I hope everyone has enjoyed this lecture. It's been so helpful for me to share this with you all. And so here is a little teaser of a next project to come. Here is a project that we're calling Reemerge. My name is Dani Rotstein, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. I want to tell you about an extraordinary phenomenon taking place in Latin America today. I actually had to go there myself to see if it was true. There are different Christian groups interested in converting to Judaism.
O sea, a mí si me dices, compruébame que eres judío, a lo mejor no te lo puedo comprobar, pero te puedo mostrar el corazón. Mi corazón es judío al 100%.
Mucha gente tiene mucha sed de judaísmo acá, quiere conocer, pero no hay una puerta abierta para eso.
Comencé a investigar mucho sobre el judaísmo. Fui a la comunidad judía y me dijeron que ellos no podían ayudarme.
Because people have been rejected by the established Jewish communities, they're going and forming their own. Now you have emerging communities going away from traditional communities. That's crazy.
Esta comunidad son todos conversos, menos yo.
Son dos tipos de exigencia. Aquí nos piden más observancia y allá nos piden mejor posición social.
Our plan is to create a documentary series that will shine a light on these unknown stories, highlighting their different hopes, experiences, and challenges.
Me decía, pero piénsalo bien, vas a ser discriminado por latino y ahora vas a ser discriminado por judío. Ándate de aqui, todavía sé feliz.
A sinagoga tem que estar aberta, a sinagoga não é museu, tem que estar aberta. Eu acho errado.
Right now, we are looking for producing partners to help prepare the project and secure funding so we can return to Latin America to tell this story completely.
Una de las cosas que tenemos que luchar es para sacar la palabra emergente de las comunidades. Ya emergió.
So I hope that you will engage and learn more. I ask you to all not be silent, to share, to tell our story, because if we don't tell it, no one else will. And I invite you all to join our newsletter, Jewish Majorca, to stay up to date with all of the activities that we're doing. We're about to send out a big newsletter in a little bit, so there's still time to get on that. Oh, I just sent it to Mara. I don't know if you wanted to open up the chat, and people can also put their emails in if they want to stay up to date. And yeah, I hope there's not 1,000 questions, Mara.
Not 1,000 questions, many notes about how people appreciated this presentation, and are really, even people who have been to Majorca didn't realize how Jewish communities have been there for so long. So thank you, Dani. We did have a few questions about language. So it seems like the island of Majorca has its own language, but we also know that Jews from Spanish-speaking places also sometimes spoke Ladino. Can you speak to what are there any like key words that Jews may have been using or Chuetas have been using that sort of show something?
Okay, so basically the language thing is very simple. Spanish is completely different from Catalan. Those are two very different languages, okay? Buen provecho means enjoy your meal, and bon profit means enjoy your meal. So you hear it sounds like bon appetit, right? So it's kind of a mix between French, Spanish, Portuguese. Mallorquin and Catalan are the same language, just different dialects. I like to, people think and say that Mallorquin is like a lower, dirtier version of Catalan. Catalan is a little bit more highbrow. I like to give the example, it's like an American English and the Queen's English, right? The British English. So that's the difference between Mallorquin and Catalan. Ladino is probably not spoken here on the Balearic Islands and not really in Catalonia. Anywhere where they spoke Catalan, they wouldn't have spoken Ladino. They would have spoken Hebrew and Catalan and maybe Arabic and many other, different languages at that time. Ladino is usually more of like coming from like Castilla, like the Madrid area, Toledo, Cordoba, that area of Spain. Hopefully that is making it clearer.
Yes, thank you so much. And in our last 3 minutes, I just want to share, a lot of people are now interested in traveling to Majorca. When is the best time to come? If people want to visit the synagogue, how should they go about that? Are there kosher foods available? And someone in particular wants to know, is there kosher wine that is made on the island? I imagine that might be a hard ask.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no kosher wine being made yet, even though there's 100 wineries here. There are some kosher wineries in Catalonia that we work with and we do import. We do not have any kosher restaurants, sadly. There's just not, demand for it, let's call it. There is a kosher kitchen in the synagogue. So they do have, we ship in frozen kosher meat from Malaga, from the southern part of Spain. But again, it's frozen. There is a woman in the community who can make some challah and make some Shabbat meals during the summer. I think actually all year round. But it's like one person making some meals. So it's like, again, not a restaurant. And we really only have Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat services in the one synagogue here. Only when the rabbi's in town will we have Shacharit Saturday morning. And yeah, there is no Chabad, though there is a Chabad in Ibiza, which is right next door. And I think that's probably because they have some families that fund a Chabad to be in Ibiza because they have a second home there, where we don't have those people to fund Chabad. Also, I think there's perhaps the Chueta issue has something to do with that as well, because if they were to open up a Chabad center, they wouldn't necessarily know who's Jewish, who has Jewish roots, who's Chueta, who's not Chueta. And Chabad doesn't really work in conversion. They like to make, or help people, get more observant, more dati, more religious. But you have to start by being Jewish with Chabad. They're not going and converting non-Jews into Jewish people. Any other questions? Oh, I just put some links. I'll tell that really quickly. So Limud Majorca, if you go onto our website, I ask you to copy and save it somewhere and go to previous events. You'll see all of our events that we've done, the concerts, the conferences, and the school teaching Holocaust education in school. I really encourage you to look at all of our previous events. And ChuetaIslandTheMovie.com is our website. About the film. If you do want a screening in your community, please let us know. We're happy to organize that. Virtual screenings, of course. And I just sent Mara the last website. There's 4, I think I sent in total. Reemerge project. That's the future project about Latin America. If you want to get on that newsletter and stay up to date or learn about that as well. So lots of different ways to engage. I can't thank you all enough for being here, for pulling yourselves away from the horror that's going on now. I hope it was an hour break that was useful, that was helpful, that was positive. And I really want to stick to the fact, going back to Rav Nisan, Chueta is now a leader of our community again, and he's originally from Majorca. How incredibly inspiring is that the Jewish spirit will find a way to continue moving forward and going on, and this Majorca story represents that. And I'm hoping that sharing of the story can give us all hope in the coming weeks that we'll need.
Thank you so much, Dani. Thank you to everyone for being here. We will share out the recording, and I'll also include all the links that Dani wanted to share. And of course, you can email us. You can reply to the email if there's any additional questions. And I just want to echo everything Dani said. We're wishing you well and sending you all lots and lots of strength. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.